Hello, everybody, and welcome. Of course, thanks for tuning in to Weird Mythic Podcast. I'm just one of your hosts, Naomi, and I'm always joined with the amazing Serena. Hey, girl.
Hey, well, you're not always joined. Remember that one time I didn't do the episode and then Jason filled in for me? Shout out, Jason.
Shout out, Jason. It was just one time, and we don't talk about that because I missed you.
I had strep throat. But yay, it's good to be here. This is going to be a fun episode. We're kind of do something different. I can't speak English.
Kind of do it.
It's going to be fun. We're talking about mermaids today.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much fun the research was going to be until I was like, okay, there is just so much. And we're thinking we might have to do a second episode already. We are not even done with this one.
We are going to have to do a second episode. We already talked about that. I didn't realize how hard the research was going to be. Normally when you have like a cryptid or something like that, there is conflicting information. With mermaids, it's like times 10.
It's for real. There's so many conflicting issues, and it was pretty interesting just to start the research on it and then try to figure out, okay, so do I want to do a story? Do I want to do like the myths behind it? Do I want to do all the sightings? Do I want to talk about all the conflicting evidence?
Right. So that's going to be fun. You guys are going to struggle with us. Before we get into it, though, we want to talk about the True Crime Podcast Festival, which we are going to be attending in August in Dallas, Texas. And tickets are still on sale, and you can get 15% off if you type in the code TCPF, so Tango Charlie Papa Foxtrot 15 at checkout, 15% off. And I'll have everything linked down below if you guys want to come hang out with a bunch of really, 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 really cool podcasts. Like really cool podcasts.
Like really cool podcasters. Because we want to hang out with them too.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And yes. And that is at the end of August, and that's the 26th through the 28th, right?
I think it's the 27th and 28th.
All right, the 27th and 28th.
Yes.
I'm just coming up on the 26th.
There's going to be a lot of really cool panels, and you can basically just get up close and personal with all of the podcasters in a very casual setting. And if you guys aren't able to go, we are signed up to do a Spotify live recording. So we are going to be on that, and you can tune into that. I'll have everything posted on social media leading up to the festival once we lock in our times. But we have a really cool topic that we're going to be talking about that day. So I feel like you guys should just listen, okay?
Yeah, just freaking listen. Thank you.
Just support us, okay?
Just support us, please.
All right, well, let's get into it. I'm so excited to hear what you have to tell me.
Okay. All right, cool. So basically for today's episode on mermaids, I am going to be talking about just one thing, actually, instead of multiple things like I normally do. So I have never read the Hans Christian Andersen, The Little Mermaid. And the only reason I hadn't read it is probably because I just never thought about reading it.
What a good reason.
Like, really, I was like, I don't want to read The Little Mermaid. I know it's nothing like okay, so before I read it, I already knew that it was nothing like the Disney version. That Disney kind of just got the idea of their Little Mermaid from Hans Christian Andersen. So, by the way, I love short stories, so just to read this was really fun because, you know, it only takes a little bit to read, but they give you so much information and so much detail in such a little bit of time.
Funny.
So
okay.
I just got to put it out there. I love short stories.
I'm glad that you said that because those books I sent you the other day, I was like, I went into this random, like, what would you call it? Like a secondhand store. Like, I don't know. They had like toys, action figures, books, a bunch of stuff, right? And they had all these, like this collection of short stories. And it was in this really like beautiful binding. And I texted Naomi a picture. I was like, would you be interested in any of these? And she's like, all of them.
Dude, I was like, everything in that picture I want.
I'm like, okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Got you a gift. So I think we should start maybe like once a month, do an episode where we read a short story or at least summarize a short story, give you the cliff notes, whatever.
Like that. I'm down.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be a lot of fun. Let us know if you guys are interested in something like that.
I agree. Yes. And I'm very excited. Yes, I do love short stories. They're just, I don't know. I like having all the information and then I don't have to like read the boring parts of the books like they sometimes happen. Okay? Mainly in Stephen King is how I feel about that. Like the beginning and the end are great. And then the middle of Stephen King, you're like, please just get to it. Please.
Oh,
no. Anyways, all right, so back to The Little Mermaid. Hans Christian Andersen did write this book in 1836, and it was actually published in a collection of fairy tales for children. So, the way it starts off, of course, there is the Sea King. He is a widower, and he had 6 daughters. His mom, so their grandma, is actually a very big part of The Little Mermaid. The grandma, I don't actually have her name, and the Sea King is legit just the Sea King and grandma, okay? So they don't have names right now, and I don't think I ever saw any names to, connect to them. Anyways, so there's the Sea King and his mom, and she is helping raise the 6 girls. And at the age of 15, all mer people are then permitted to go up to the surface of the sea, and they can people watch, legit people watch. There was nothing saying that they're allowed or not allowed to interact with the boats or with seeing people on land, but it is at the age of 15 that mer people are then allowed to go up and check out the surface of the water.
Okay.
So there's 6 sisters, right? So one by one, they all turn 15. And each sister would always come back and tell the younger sisters what they had seen. And all the younger sisters, of course, were super excited to just hear the stories. So one of them, the oldest sister, when she went up, she was 15 and went up to the surface, and it was during the dusk. And she really didn't see much. I don't have a whole lot of the sisters loved going up to the surface. It was more like they kind of went up and just people watched, and sometimes one of the sisters went up and it was storming. It just so happened to be a huge storm, so she didn't see anything. One of the sisters went up and it was dusk and she got to see a lot of the boats coming into the port, so that's what she came back and talked about. But something that all 5 older sisters would do, they would go up to the surface, they would lock arms, and they would actually sing. And they would kind of just sing to the passing by boats. So finally, the youngest sister turned 15 years old. So she goes up to the surface, and it was when the sun was setting. And as the sun was rising. She went up during the rising sun. And when she went up there was this giant ship. And it was actually celebrating the birthday of a prince that was near the land where the merfolk kind of lived under. Okay, so she goes up. I don't know how else to explain it because
I understand. I'm visualizing everything right now in my mind.
So it's they're up there and they look and they see there's a big port and ships all the time, and there's an island and people. So she goes up. Sun is rising. There's a big boat with a celebration with this prince, and she's noticing there's just a lot of people dancing, music, there was fireworks, and she was scared, of course, of the fireworks first and swam underneath the water and then came back up and realized, okay, it's fine. And she kind of started to watch this prince and just got really I don't even know, just thought he was super hot, pretty much. She was like, oh, this guy's dreamy, okay? So, seriously, she's 15, guys, and she's looking at this prince and, totally in love with him. So the sun starts to go down. She's legit watching this party all day. And as the sun is setting... I know, that's how I felt. I was like, you don't even, know these. She's, swimming around the boat, checking inside the windows and shit, just watching people. So, sun starts to go down, and the water starts to get a little more chaotic. There's big waves now. There's, lightning all over. And the ship is really fighting against these waves. The sailors, you could tell, in the short story, the sailors are getting really worried because they can't get everything to work the way it's supposed to, fighting against the wind. So the Little Mermaid, the youngest one, thought that it looked like the ship was like playing with the ocean. It was real innocent the way that she thought of it. She thought that the ship and the ocean were like fighting against each other, and she thought it was funny when the boat would actually go underneath the waves and then pop back up. She thought it was hilarious.
That is terrifying.
So she thought then like, oh, the boat's gonna come into the water. Maybe I can then meet the prince. And then she remembered, oh, wait, humans don't breathe underwater. So then she's like, oh, shit, maybe, I need to save him, which is exactly what she did because the boat crashed and got taken out by the waves. So she does end up just swimming to the prince and saves him. And she takes him back to shore and leaves him like on the beach next to, buildings and whatnot. And she does see this like convent of girls coming down to the beach, and so she leaves the prince there, and the convent of girls and nuns eventually come by and save him, and he wakes up. But of course, the Little Mermaid didn't get any credit for it because she scurried away.
So wait, she was just like, fuck all the other people though?
Yeah, no, nobody else was saved. It was just the prince. Yep, just the prince was saved. Don't know what happened to the rest of the crew. I have no idea. So the Little Mermaid does go back home, and again, guys, she's 15, and she's really upset that she didn't get the credit for, saving the prince and meeting him, because she didn't get to. So she's kind of distancing herself from her sisters, and eventually one of the older sisters is like, girl, what is wrong with you? And she comes out and says exactly what happened, that she saved the prince and blah, blah, blah. So the older sister then, game of telephone, starts telling a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend. So one of these random friends comes back to the Little Mermaid a few days later and was like, I actually know where the prince is. And so the Little Mermaid's like, what? So the Little Mermaid and all her sisters then go up to the surface and they lock arms and they start singing and they're looking at the people, and yes, they know exactly where the prince is. So of course after that, every day the Little Mermaid would go up to the prince's castle because there's like a little like stream that she can swim up. So she's been legit stalking the prince at this point. She is obsessed with him. Obsessed. So one day, the Little Mermaid then goes over to her grandma, and she starts just asking questions about the world above the water. And what I actually liked about the grandma is she calls it the land above the sea, and I just thought that was really pretty. So she just starts kind of asking questions, and she's actually questioning her grandma, like, on how long do humans live? Do they live like us? What happens when they die? So according to the grandma, humans live... Okay, so the Little Mermaid asks her grandma if humans live forever after they drowned. So the grandma replies, I know, after they drowned. So grandma replies, no, a human soul is shorter than a mermaid's, which can live for 300 years. A human soul continues to live on after the body dies. A mermaid's soul will die and become part of the sea.
Whoa.
Very interesting, right? So what I gathered from that was pretty much her being like, no, we live longer and humans have souls and mermaids kind of have souls. But we'll get into it a little bit later also, that like their soul, they live for like 300 years and then they kind of become part of the ocean. So it's not like a soul like humans would think of in any other sort of religion of it continuing on to the next life. The mermaids do not have that theology. So the Little Mermaid ends up telling her grandma, like, I really want to be a human. I would give up anything to have a human soul, even if that meant a shorter life, because then she can, be with the prince.
My God, he doesn't even know you exist.
No, not at all. So she asked her grandma if there was any way that she could win over a human soul and have it for herself. And the granny, of course, had answers for that. And she said, no, unless a man were to love her so much that he loved her more than his own parents, and all of his thoughts and love were for her and only her. Then they would need to get married, and part of his soul would then be transferred over to her, and then she would then have a human soul and be human with that man. So,
wow.
Very interesting. I know, yeah. So, a couple days later, there's this party with all the mer people in this giant castle, and there's lots of singing and dancing, and apparently the Little Mermaid, the youngest, has the most beautiful voice, and so she's singing and dancing with everybody, and everyone's loving her voice. And during that party, the Little Mermaid is like, you know what? I'm gonna go see the Sea Witch. Out of freaking nowhere. You're at a party and you're like, I'm gonna go visit the Sea Witch. Yeah, so by the way, Sea Witch also does not have a name. She's not Ursula. She's just the Sea Witch. So, she goes to see the Sea Witch, and I just gotta say, like, I'm not gonna go over the entire description of her not walking, but swimming over. The Little Mermaid was, like, very scared, but kept going. She could have definitely been killed, but she just really wanted to, you know,
she wanted to bang her
have
new
this
dude.
Human soul. Oh. Yeah, she pretty much, like, really. There was this part in the description as she's going through. There's like these tentacles and arms, like you know, like an octopus or whatever, that is like gripping at her and tugging at her. And as she's like ripping away from the corpse of a mermaid, dead fish, dead sharks. And it is so creepy the way that it's just described. And everything just gets creepier and creepier as she gets towards the Sea Witch. So I'm actually going to read directly from the short story of the description of the Sea Witch. Quote, "She now came to a space of marshy ground in the wood, where large, fat water snakes were rolling in the mire and showing their ugly, drab-colored bodies. In the midst of this spot stood a house, built with the bones of shipwrecked human beings. There sat the Sea Witch, allowing a toad to eat from her mouth, just as people sometimes feed a canary with a piece of sugar. She called the ugly water snakes her little chickens and allowed them to crawl all over her bosom." Oh. Yeah.
Ew.
I loved that. I was like, I'm just going to have to read
chickens
it.
on her titties.
And I'm just imagining this giant, I don't know, because he doesn't give you like really any description on exactly what she looks like. That's the what I think would be written down.
Yeah.
Like, you fill in the gaps, it makes it creepier.
I agree. What did Ursula call in the movies? Her little poopsies or something like that?
So that is the description of the Sea Witch again. As soon as the Little Mermaid got up to the Sea Witch already knew why she was there, and immediately told her, like, hey, I'm warning you, if you want to be human, I can do this, but it's going to be a pain. And what the Sea Witch was telling her is, yes, of course, I can make you into a human. I can give you human legs, but I can't guarantee that the prince is going to fall in love with you. And when you have these human legs, it's not going to be fun. It's going to hurt. Like, hurt so much that you might bleed from your feet. It's going to feel like stinging knives and needles going up through your feet, through your legs, every time you walk. And again, she can't promise that the prince is even going to fall in love with her at that point. So, does the Little Mermaid?
What a risk taker.
Well, I'm like, I don't want to feel that at all. But then again, if this is a mermaid, she's never had feet before. I don't think she understands what that pain even feels like, right? So, does the Little Mermaid go through with this? Yes, she does.
Of course, she's 15 and stupid.
Yep. So, the Sea Witch also tells her that if she becomes human, she is unable to turn back into a mermaid. And if the prince or another man breaks her heart and will not marry her, then she will immediately die and become sea foam. So, that's another thing. Not only...
that part? I feel like I know that part. The sea foam part is ringing a bell, but I've definitely have never read this before.
So yeah, not only can she make her into a human, but it's going to be extremely painful to walk to the point where she might bleed, and she can't guarantee anything. So are you sure you want to go through with this? Are you sure? And the Little Mermaid
she says 100%
yes,
all in.
So of course, the Sea Witch wants a payment, right? And what is that payment? Her voice. That's probably the only part of the Disney version that is correct.
Well, that and the fact that she's stalking this guy that she's obsessed with that she doesn't know.
Right. And also, you know how she gets her voice? It's not by just her taking that little light out of the Little Mermaid and then all of a sudden she doesn't have a voice no more. No. Sea Witch cuts off her tongue.
Ooh.
Cuts it off. Yeah.
So she can't even make out now. Like, what's the point? You're doing all this for
body language. Body language, like in the movie. It's all about the body language. So the Sea Witch cuts out her tongue and gives her this little concoction to drink. So she drinks the concoction, goes up to the surface, and as soon as she drank it, she felt immediate sharp pain, and it said like a double-edged sword rushed through her body. It hurt her so much that she passed out from the pain and just fell on the beach. So, passed out. When she woke up, surprisingly, the prince was the one there. So she woke up and saw the man she was hoping to see. He was like just staring at her and then quickly looked away. And then she noticed, oh, I'm naked, but I have feet. So the prince is trying to be nice and modest and looks away, And so the Little Mermaid, since she has no clothes, legit wraps herself in her hair and covers up her whole body. So girl's got to have some crazy amount of hair. So the prince then asks, who are you and do you need help? And the Little Mermaid just stares at him.
Creepy.
Just stares at him because, she can't speak anyway. She has no tongue. So the prince, seeming to be a really nice guy, takes her back to the castle and has to really help her because she's in so much pain when she's walking that it does feel like needles and knives just going through her feet. Everybody at the castle thought that she's extremely pretty, but since she couldn't speak, they thought that she was dumb. Yeah. Just flat out an idiot.
They're not wrong. She makes really bad decisions, but...
Right. So she stays in the castle, and one night there was this woman / slave of the castle, and they were dancing and they were singing for the prince. And the Little Mermaid started to get just a little bit jealous because he was looking at these women who were dancing and singing for him. And he started saying how much he loved the girls' voices and how much he loved the singing. So Little Mermaid got up and started dancing. And surprisingly, she was very graceful and danced, of course, differently from the other girls because this is her first time having legs and feet. So here she goes. So she's dancing, and the prince actually really loved it and actually asked her to stay at the castle. So it was at this part that I'm like, okay, she's dumb is what they're saying, and he wants to help out this girl who can't talk and obviously has no family in the area. And I'm like, okay, he's a nice guy, right?
I don't know, red flag to me, but...
Well, he has a nickname for the Little Mermaid. Do you want to, just guess any nickname at all?
I don't
know. He calls her his little foundling. Foundling. What the fuck does that even mean? I think it's really demeaning also. Little foundling. Nobody would have found you unless I found you.
It's better than
I just didn't
little
like
dumbass or something.
Yeah, but then he does something else. He places a velvet cushion outside of his bedroom, and that's where she sleeps, like a freaking dog.
It's his pet.
Yep, exactly.
That's weird. He's weird. Maybe he has a fetish or something.
I don't know. Either way, I just thought the whole thing was very strange, but this is what she wanted, so that's what's happening. So, the prince, of course, she follows the prince around. And
like a dog.
He does, like a dog. And he does start to notice, like, something's up with your feet. So she starts to soak her feet in the ocean every night. And one night, she saw her sisters singing in the ocean, locked in arms. So she's like, oh, it's my sisters, and starts waving her arms, and they do see her. So they go up close to her, and they're like, where the fuck have you been? And of course, she can't talk. So she's just sitting there waving and smiling. So eventually, Grandma and Dad come up, and they do want her to come back. They don't want her to be out on the surface, and she doesn't do anything. She still stays there with the prince, but she is able to see her family every now and then. So I thought that was kind of cool, but how odd for the family to be like, why are you doing this? You're in so much pain. You don't know these people. They think you're dumb. They're treating you like a dog. Like, come on. So eventually, I think she's there for a good, like, month or so at this point. And the prince comes up to her and tells her one day, you know, I do love you, but there's this other woman who I've been looking at, and you're both really pretty and you look very much alike, but I just don't know if I can be with her. And pretty much if he can't be with this other woman because she lives in a holy temple and might be off limits, then he'll consider being with her. So pretty much told her, you're cute, but you're not who I want to be with. But if this other girl don't want me, then I'll come to you.
Yeah, you're my second choice. I told you guys, red flag.
Red flag. So the prince one day has to go and meet somebody who his parents want him to meet to marry their daughter. So it's, hey, go meet this girl. You might like her. Let's see how it goes. So he goes to, of course, meet her. And as soon as he meets her, guess what? It's that chick from the Holy Temple. So he's extremely excited. I think I have a quote in here. Okay, so this is something that he told her. This is what the prince told the Little Mermaid when he was told by his parents to go meet this other woman. So he says, I must see this beautiful princess. My parents desire it, but they will not oblige me to bring her home as my bride. I cannot love her. She is not the beautiful maiden in the temple whom you resemble. If I were forced to choose a bride, I would rather choose you, my dumb foundling, with those expressive eyes.
I hate him.
Straight up called her dumb, and he's gonna go meet this woman, and since it's not the woman he wants it to be, then I'll get with you. But when he gets there, it's that freaking girl from that holy temple.
That's so sad.
Yeah. So, of course, they get married, and there's this big celebration on a boat, and the night of the wedding, the Little Mermaid is there, and she's sitting there like, I'm gonna die. By the time the sun rises tomorrow, I'm gonna turn into sea foam, and I'm gonna die. As she is looking out, she sees her sisters, and her sisters are, like, sitting there, and they're singing, except none of her sisters have hair. So they go up to the boat and they tell their little sister, hey, we all made a deal with the sea witch. We cut our hair so that we can keep you from dying. But the sea witch said you have to take this knife, as they hand a sharp knife over to the Little Mermaid, and you have to kill the prince. Once the prince is dead, you will then become a mermaid again and live out the rest of your 300 years with the rest of the merfolk and your family.
As a murderer.
Yep, so kill this guy and then you'll be saved. So, what do you think the Little Mermaid did?
I mean, I don't think it's hard to guess. She's already crazy, so...
Yeah, she is. So, the Little Mermaid goes into where, like, the prince and his new bride are sleeping.
Does she kill the woman too? Okay, go ahead.
And she's... So she goes in and she's looking at him and she has the knife and runs out of the tent. She couldn't do it. She couldn't kill him. She couldn't do it. So she did not kill him. But what she does do is immediately jump into the ocean. She's accepting the fact that she's just going to die and turn into sea foam. But it actually doesn't end there, surprisingly. I was like, so she just dies and, like, that's the end of it? No. Hans Christian Andersen has something odd happen. And it's a little hard to describe, but I'm really going to try here. So, the Little Mermaid jumps into the sea because she cannot kill the prince. So now she is going to be turning into sea foam. And as she jumps into the water and she's floating on the water, she starts to see, like, these little fairies, or what she described as children, floating above her. And these little children or fairies started to speak to the Little Mermaid. And what they told her is they feel bad. She went through all of this and she's just going to die. So what they want to do is help her. And so what I kind of got out of that is there's some sort of water nymph. And they told her that if she becomes a water nymph and does all these good things, then she will be able to kind of have a human soul and move on like a human soul would. She wouldn't become sea foam.
Okay.
It's very odd.
But she'll still die.
But she'll still die. So here is the pretty much the last paragraph. After 300 years, thus shall we float into the kingdom of heaven, and we may even get there sooner. Unseen, we can enter the houses of men, where there are children, and for every day on which we find a good child, who is the joy of his parents and deserves their love, one time of probation is shortened. The child does not know, when we fly through the room, that we smile with joy at his good conduct, for we can count 1 year less of our 300 years. But when we see a naughty or wicked child, we shed tears of sorrow, and for every tear a day is added to our time of trial.
Oh.
So.
That makes me so sad.
That is Hans Christian Andersen, The Little Mermaid, in a nutshell, guys. She does not get the prince, and she dies. So
I thought she was going to end up killing both of them, to be honest with you.
To be honest, when I got to that part, I'm like, I don't even know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect once the sisters were like, here's a knife, kill the guy, become a mermaid again.
What
like, they tried to help her at least. And
Naomi's conflicted.
I am so conflicted because I'm like, I did not like the prince. The prince is a douchebag. The sisters, I think, understand that their sister is 15 and has absolutely no real life experiences. And they were just trying to get their sister back. I understand that by, like, I mean, I don't want you to kill anyone, but I do want you back in my life kind of thing. And if that was their only option, I mean, that's their only option. And it seems like they believe that human souls just keep going. Yeah. So maybe they don't understand the theology of possible, like, reincarnation. You don't come back as the same person. You might come back as someone or something different. They believed that it's just the same soul all the time, and you just continue living your life. So they might have thought killing him wasn't a bad idea since their souls keep going.
Yeah, so. I guess.
So, yeah.
I don't know.
It's very freaking strange. So, I mean, everyone else, I would like to hear what you thought of. I would like it if, like, somebody who has read the short story, The Little Mermaid, just let me know your opinion. Let me know how you interpreted it. Send that over to weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. I'd like to hear other people's input on the story. Maybe I didn't see something that I should have or interpreted it wrong, but
yeah,
I just thought it was very strange, and I didn't get any sort of message from it. You know, like, what was the goal here? I didn't get that. Okay. Except it's just a good story, I guess. I think 15-year-old girls should read it. Like, that's The Little Mermaid you all should read.
Yeah.
But, hey, I mean, I was a dumb 15-year-old at one point, so I understand being dumb.
How crazy is it, like, how different it is from the Disney version that we get?
So different.
It's not even close.
Right, yeah. Very, very strange, but I want to know what everyone else thinks. I want to know everyone else's interpretation of it. I need to read more Hans Christian Andersen and more grim fairy tales now.
I agree.
So that's what I'm
glad
do.
I got you those books, and I think we're gonna do it. We're gonna make this a thing on the podcast. I'm deciding
it. Serena has spoken. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget to send us any, messages at our weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. We got all of the social media for Weird Mythic Podcast on Instagram, Weird Mythic on Facebook, and
Weird Mythic.
Where does Serena like to hang out?
Twitter. We know this by now. Weird Mythic on Twitter, and then you guys, we are doing so good with reviews, and if you listened to last week's episode, you know that I need reviews to feel accomplished, so go and send us some reviews on either Apple or Google Podcasts, and you will be getting a shout out if you do on our Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, because we love you guys and we want other people to be able to find the podcast. So
Yes. I appreciate all the feedback from everybody who has left us comments or even just sent us messages through Instagram or Twitter just saying that they liked it or giving us some tips. I appreciate all of that. So thank you.
And next week is our 1-year anniversary.
It is. Yes, it is. It's so freaking wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And then what are we doing next week for our episode?
We're doing another true crime cryptid episode. Mm-hmm. So
that is right.
Stay tuned for that. That's going to be a good one. It's going to be a longer episode. And yeah. Also stay tuned
Listen next week.
Yeah. Stay tuned for Mermaids Part 2, because that's going to be coming here as well.
Yes. There might be a Part 3 depending on what we get through on Part 2.
Yeah. All right.
Because we have a lot to talk about. So
for sure.
Tune in for next time, guys.
Bye.